क्या हालचाल? बढ़िया एकदम। आज हम लोग के साथ हैं वन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स ग्रेटेस्ट फिजिक्स टीचर ऑफ आवर जनरेशन, प्रोफेसर वॉल्टर लुइन सर। एंड आई एम श्योर आपने वॉल्टर सर के वीडियोस तो देखे होंगे। एक इंसान बड़ी सी पेंडुलम को लेके अपनी लाइफ को रिस्क पे लगाता है जस्ट फॉर द लव ऑफ फिजिक्स। ना जाने इंडिया में कितने लोग ने डायलॉग कॉपी किया, फॉर द लव ऑफ फिजिक्स, फॉर द एल्योर ऑफ फिजिक्स, बट नाउ वी हैव द ओरिजिनल पर्सन जिन्होंने ये टाइटल निकाला था। जो इंसान पेंडुलम के ऊपर बैठ के ये बात प्रूव करना चाह रहा था कि टाइम पीरियड ऑफ पेंडुलम मास पे नहीं डिपेंड करता। ऐसे महान व्यक्ति आज हमारे साथ जुड़ने जा रहे हैं। एक छोटे से प्यारे से इंटरव्यू में शेयर करेंगे वो अपने लाइफ के एक्सपीरियंसेस, अपना फिजिक्स के लिए प्यार और इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए उनके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू। सो हियर वी आर स्टार्टिंग आवर इंटरव्यू विद द ग्रेटेस्ट प्रोफेसर ऑफ आवर जनरेशन, मिस्टर रिस्पेक्टेड वॉल्टर लुइन सर। हेलो सर। So, sir, first of all, welcome you on Physics Wala platform. We are so delighted to have you with us. It's a pleasant surprise. It's like a blessing in disguise that we have the greatest professor of our century, Mr. Walter Lewin, sir. Sir, we are really motivated by your lectures. I'm really inspired by your teachings. I have seen your videos in 2013, 2014. So, the first question is, Walter sir, people know you as a great professor, but what are your roots? What are your childhood memories that led you up to here? What are your struggles in the childhood? I have read something about this on the internet already.
When I was 4 years old, on May 10, when the Germans attacked the Netherlands, and that, of course, changed my life and the life of my family and of everyone else in Europe, for that matter, for about 5 years. The war broke out on May 5, 1940. We were very scared at home. We didn't know what to expect. People were afraid that the Germans would use gas. So I remember that my mother, my father, my sister and I would go to the bathroom with wet towels in front of our face. That would have been useless anyhow, but we didn't know that. What came later changed my life in an extremely difficult way. My father is Jewish, my mother is not. My grandparents were cast in Auschwitz. My aunt was murdered in Bergen-Belsen. My uncle was murdered in Buchenwald. It is not possible to even try to tell you how that affected the rest of my life. Even today, my wife, Susan, who is with me here in the room, is Jewish. I am half Jewish. There is not any day that we do not talk about the war. So let's not talk about it anymore. As far as physics is concerned, well, my interest in physics really started in high school. So I think I have probably answered your question, or not, then.
Sir, I have read something about this, but it's really full of grief. The story is full of grief, but let's get on to the lighter part, on the inspiring part. Sir, after this kind of dark childhood, how have you been inspired by science in your childhood only? How you got interest in science, how Walter Lewin is made? What happened actually after that dark childhood? What immediately happened that shaped up you towards साइंस, किस तरह से सर आप साइंस की तरफ मूव करने लगे इतने डार्क चाइल्डहुड के बाद?
Well, the choice for me to get degrees in physics was a negative choice. Many of my viewers will be surprised by that.
Negative choice.
But the reason is the following. The kind of high school that to a high school which is language oriented. Mine was high school oriented. And when you pass the national exam, which is the same everywhere in the Netherlands for science high schools, then any university has to accept you, but you could not go to medical school because you went to a science high school. For a medical school, you would have to go to a Greek and Latin high school. So I had the choice to study math, physics, chemistry, maybe also biology, but I'm not even sure about that. I couldn't think of myself for the rest of my life as a mathematician. Certainly not chemistry, because for me, chemistry is remembering. And I'm very bad at remembering things.
Yes.
Physics is not about remembering equations. That's what many students think, but it's not true. Physics is about concepts. So I chose physics because I didn't want to choose maths or chemistry. So it was a negative choice.
Sir,
little did I know then that I was made for physics and that physics was made for me.
True, very true. Sir, this is called option elimination in a multiple choice question, that you eliminate option. Okay, I don't have to do chemistry. I don't have to do mathematics. What is left? That's physics. Very interesting to hear that, sir. Sir, I have read about this, that you were doing studies or doing undergraduations in nuclear physics. But when we search you on Wikipedia, we find astrophysics. So how does it happens from a nuclear physics degree to an astrophysicist? How does this transition happen and what inspired you?
Okay, excellent question. I think I understood the question. Yes, my PhD was in low energy nuclear physics, and my supervisor was Professor Albert Wapstra. It was not unusual for someone who does not go into the industry, but for someone who likes to pursue research, to go abroad, to leave the Netherlands for 1 or 2 years. And so my supervisor wrote a letter to Professor Rossi at MIT and independently to a professor in Chicago. And he said, well, is it possible that Walter Lewin, got his PhD here, could be a postdoc in your group for 1 or 2 years? Both Bruno Rossi and the professor in Chicago said, yes, he can come. Now, when I went to Bruno Rossi, no nuclear physics. Bruno Rossi was one of the inventors of X-ray astronomy that had been invented only in 1962.
Oh my God.
And I went there already in January 66. So it was at the birth of X-ray astronomy that I entered that group. Almost anything you did in X-ray astronomy turned into gold because it was brand new. So by sheer luck, I chose the right thing. And within half a year, they offered me a professorship. So I wasn't even a postdoc anymore. And I never left. And in those 43 years that I was on the faculty, I have published about 450 articles in referee journals about X-ray astronomy, neutron stars, black holes, X-ray binaries. And so I never changed that field, of course. Nuclear energy was that was behind us, also to speak. I mean, nuclear energy already existed for almost 100 years. X-ray astronomy only 4 years. So the door to X-ray astronomy was wide open.
Sir, but I think that period you are telling, it's somewhat related to the first manned moon mission also. Is there a story behind this?
Oh, I was already at MIT. It was 1969. First man on the moon. It was July 20, 1969. And I came to MIT January 66. July 20. Never to forget. For 2 reasons. One is landing on the moon. Second is an attempt on Hitler's life by von Stauffenberg, which almost succeeded. That was July 20, 1944. So July 20 is a very special day in my life for more than one reason.
Wow, that's amazing to hear, sir. Well, actually, I wanted to know about this time period only. Sir, this question is a bit of kind of a trick question, maybe. I think so. It's a trick question that, sir, you have inspired a lot of students. You have inspired a lot of teachers. Matlab, we all know that you're born for physics, you live for physics. But how actually you fell in love with physics? How actually it happened for the love of physics? How it happened?
How were you in love with?
Yeah, how do you fall in love with a woman? It's similar. I mean, it is a chemical reaction that happens here.
Yeah.
And you can call it a disease when you fall in love.
True.
But in the case of my love for physics, I was never able to cure that disease. It's in my blood. It is in every cell of my body. As I told you earlier, I didn't realize until I started my studies at the university in physics, I didn't realize that I was made for physics. But I even believed that physics was made for me.
Physics was made for me. Sir, a bit of physics was also made for me too. थोड़ा सा part मेरे को ही मिलेगा. I have seen your video. I have seen your last video of MIT, and you told that you practiced that lecture about 8 times. You call it dry running, and you make several dry runs before delivering a lecture. How does this impact your teaching? Why is it necessary to have so many dry runs? And what actually works, sir? We want to know what the concept behind so many dry runs. Dry run means उसी को बार-बार practice करना, मतलब पढ़ाने से पहले खाली रूम में practice करना.
You asked that question because you are a teacher yourself.
Sir, we want to know more about it.
The secret to any good lecture is obviously preparation.
True.
The reason why so many lecturers, including at MIT, are terribly boring. They have their lecture notes of last year. They walk into the lecture hall, they open their lecture notes, and they start reading. Immensely boring. So, yes, to a large degree, the success of my lectures is due to my extreme preparation. So extreme that you better not tell your professors in India because they will be upset. I will tell you how I prepared. I would start thinking about the concept of how I would present a certain lecture already half a year before I gave that lecture. Then I would start slowly making a scenario. I wrote down some notes. So I was starting what I call building a house. A lecture is a house. If I felt that I had a reasonable house on paper, I would dry run that about 2 weeks before my lecture.
This is what
in the empty lecture hall, everything, the damaged stuff, everything. In general, I would overrun my 50 minutes. So I would have to do some surgery and cut out some stuff. I would then 1 week before my lecture, again in an empty lecture hall with all the demonstrations, with everything you can imagine, I dry run it again 1 week before the lecture. I then, in general, had to make a few more changes. And then you can ask my wife. She's sitting next to me.
Yes,
At
yes,
6
yes.
a.m. At 6 a.m. in the morning of every lecture, I would dry run again for an empty lecture hall. At 6 a.m. of the day of my lecture. So by the time I gave the lecture at 10 o'clock and the same lecture at 11 o'clock, it became a performance, like an actor on the stage.
Sir, I have heard.
In addition, when I prepared, I always tried as much as possible to include the world that the students see around them. That's why I love to talk about rainbows, why the sky is blue, why the clouds are white, why rainbows are linearly polarized. So you relate it to their own lives. And therefore, when I do the demonstrations, where possible, I also include students. And then there is something else that is important in a lecture. You should never become boring. So therefore, I do demonstrations of which the students think that I risk my life. No way. So when I do the famous experiment with the pendulum, I make them think that that ball could hit my face. And so they are really, they're shaking in their seats. They are really afraid that something would happen to me. And I tell them, if that ball hits my chin, this may be my last lecture. And they believe that. I can make students in my lecture hall laugh. I can make them stop breathing. I can also make them wet their pants.
Okay, sir. That is nice. Sir, I've also heard that you have took a 6 months off from MIT. What was that for?
Since one lecture required about 80 hours of preparation, 80
hours.
80 hours, one lecture typically.
Man.
Since I gave 3 lectures per week, 3 times 80 is 240 hours. There are no 240 hours in a week, right? So I started working on my lectures always the term before the term that I lectured. And MIT always gave me the term off before the term that I lectured. That was a gesture given to all professors at MIT who lectured a main lecture course. That was also true in mathematics, that was true in biology, that was true in chemistry and in physics. So you would get the term before your lecture term completely off from teaching. And during that term, I prepared the lectures.
देखा एक्चुअली सर सही बोल रहे हैं. जब मेरे वीडियो 2 दिन में एक आते हैं तो तुम लोग बोलते हो 2 दिन में एक वीडियो क्यों? प्रिपरेशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होती है. एक अच्छा फिजिक्स टीचर ना प्रिपेयर जरूर करता है सर. दूसरे सर तो एक दिन में 3 वीडियो डाल रहे हैं, आप 2 दिन में एक वीडियो, 3 दिन में एक वीडियो. करना पड़ता है बच्चों, तैयारी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होती है. देखो सर एकदम एग्जैक्ट वही चीज बता रहे हैं.
I want you to say one more thing. One more thing. I have given the lectures of 801 Newtonian mechanics more than once. And I have given also the lectures electricity and magnetism more than once. And also the lectures 803 more than once. Even when I gave it the second time, I would still dry run it 2 weeks before the lecture, 1 week before the lecture, and 6 a.m. of the lecture. The reason why you have to do that, you would overrun the time. if you didn't do that. You have to really push it back again into the 50 minutes. In other words, if you play Hamlet as an actor and you play it 2 years later, you really have to do your homework again. It's the same thing.
Sir. Too much homework. Too much homework. True. When you have to repeat the same thing, then you have to beat yourself. You have to beat your own content. Well, you have to beat it. That is very tough. That happened with me last year when I launched the app. I taught in Laksh batch. That similar thing happened with me in my app.
Alakh,
Yes,
one more issue,
yes,
which
sir.
is very important for me.
Yes.
I had a clock, a digital clock on my desk in the classroom. When the lecture starts, it reads 50 and it counts down to 0. The lecture is 50 minutes. In my lecture notes, I have every 5 minutes a number. That number is 50 on the first page. A little later, it is 45. Then it is 40. Then it is 35, and so on. So at any moment in time, I can compare the clock in my lecture notes with the clock on the table. So if I fall behind 1 minute, I know that. If I am ahead 1 minute, I know that. So when I finish my lecture, it is always within 30 seconds of the planned time of 50 minutes. Rarely ever within 1 minute. It's always very close. I never overrun by 1 minute. Students leave because students have to go to another lecture. So overrunning by 1 minute is deadly. That never happened to me.
Sir, is that real? That egg?
For my viewers, because they love that egg. My students at MIT also love that egg. And they often ask me, why are you wearing this egg on your shirt? And my answer always is, it's better to have an egg on your shirt than in your face. I have many brooches. This is the one that particularly, when I gave lectures for children, they loved this one.
Sir, I have seen you wearing this shirt since what, 2013 or 2014? What is the same kind of shirts you buy, or is the same shirt some lucky thing or what?
I have about 35 shirts.
Okay.
And many of them are quite colorful.
Okay.
This shirt is famous for the reason that on May 16, 2011, May 16, 2011,
Brilliant.
I gave my farewell lecture for MIT, which is called For the Love of Physics. It's the same title as my book, For the Love of Physics.
Yes.
That lecture has now been viewed since that time by 13 million people. It is my most popular lecture.
Most popular.
And during that lecture, I was wearing this shirt.
Yes.
So, as a gesture to you, I'm wearing it again. Special day for me because of my interview with you. May 16 was my sister's birthday, by the way. May 16, 2011 was also a very special day. So yes, I'm wearing it in honor of you.
Sir, I have seen your video in which you visited the classroom after retiring and you got emotional. And I've also read about you that you are a scientist. What do you love more, teaching or being a scientist? A teacher or a scientist? What do you prefer more and why? Or is that a combination of both?
It's a very good question. I love both very much. And of course, during my 43 years at MIT, by far most of my time was spent on research. Yet when I was teaching, I couldn't do any research for reasons that I explained, right? It's completely obvious because of my preparation time. The wonderful thing about a university is that you can do both. Not can you do both, you have to do both. You would never get tenure at MIT if you were a good teacher. You have to, you must be world known because of your research. That's how you get tenure at MIT.
Oh.
Then if you happen to be a good teacher, so much the better. We have also very bad teachers at MIT. We really do. Because you get your tenure only based on your research, not on your teaching ability.
Okay. Okay. Got you, sir. Got you.
So
sir,
MIT was an ideal place for me. I mean, I could do research at very high level. It was very well funded by NASA and by the National Science Foundation. And I had the option of lecturing for a large lecture hall, 500 students in a lecture hall.
So, sir, your major research were around astro, I think. Can you throw some light on your research part of astro? What actually fascinated you in astro? Is it about something about black hole or the radiations or the Doppler effect? Well, I really want to know in astro, what was your major concerns that you viewed over these years?
X-ray astronomy was discovered in 1962. I joined the group at MIT in 1966. There was another group of Riccardo Giacconi, who later got the Nobel Prize, at American Science and Engineering. That was an industry. MIT was very active also in X-ray astronomy. So almost anything you did in X-ray astronomy, I was one of the first to fly enormously large balloons, larger than the Empire State Building, 60 million cubic feet balloons, to an altitude of about 130,000 feet, way above any airplanes. The reason why you have to get out of the Earth's atmosphere, that X-rays are absorbed by the Earth's atmosphere. So the early parts of X-ray astronomy in 1962, the discovery was done by rocket, 80 kilometers high. And so George Clark and I, George was first, I joined George's group. We pursued it with balloons. I had many balloons flights from Australia, from the United States. And then later, of course, we started launching satellites, because satellite is completely outside the Earth's atmosphere. So then you have no problem with absorption due to the air.
Sir, since you are an astro,
you obviously did whatever was possible to get the best resolution, energy resolution, to get the best spatial resolution, because only if you knew precisely where an X-ray source was, could you find the optical counterpart. In the first in the first 4 years, even 5 years, there was no optical identification of an X-ray source, maybe with the exception of the Crab Nebulae. But later, when the positions of the X-ray sources became extremely well known because of the sophistication of rockets and balloons, many optical identifications were found. You have to know the position of an X-ray source, if possible, better than a few arc minutes, in the hope to find an optical identification. 1 degree is not enough. There are too many stars in 1 degree.
sir, this is a bit off-track question. So our students are very much interested in that you were into astro and everything. So like a nerd, I would like to ask, do you still believe that is there any kind of time travel possibilities? It's kind of a stupid question, you can say, but that's what revolves around all of us. And stupidity is physics, that I believe.
Okay, so your question is about time travel. Okay.
Yes.
Time travel is possible.
Wow.
We know that from Einstein's theory of special relativity, but only in a very special way. You and I are both on Earth. Okay?
Yes.
I leave the Earth in a rocket. and I go with extremely high speeds
Ram Sham
away from you. And then when I am 3 years older, listen carefully, when I'm 3 years older, I return to the earth. You have already died 100 years ago.
Yes.
And I am only 6 years older. That is the way that time travel is not only possible, but it's even done, not with people, but it is done with radioactive isotopes that come into the earth. So it's time travel is possible. In a way, I time travel to the future because you have already died 100 years ago.
Man,
so that means when I come back to Earth, it is no longer 2020, but it is 2120. So I have traveled in the future. I cannot travel back. So even my grandchildren would have died. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
All my friends, my parents, my grandchildren, they all have died.
Sir, we wish you always keep time traveling.
That is not fantasy.
It's not fantasy.
And that is not fantasy. That you are a physicist, you know that it's real physics, which has been tested. It is known among students as the twin paradox. If they want to learn about it, they should Google the word twin paradox.
Sir, we have the Indian version of that, Ram and Sham story given by our Verma, sir.
Scientific movies.
The sci-fi movies. Have you ever seen sci-fi movie? Are you into movies?
You don't watch science movies.
No. Shana will answer it for me. What is my answer, Shana?
He doesn't watch movies.
Oh, man. Okay.
Shana,
so here's Suzanne.
He doesn't watch science movies.
Okay.
He watches documentaries.
Okay, my wife has answered for me.
Okay.
Susan,
okay.
My right hand and my left hand. Now my left hand.
That we got.
So she is right. I have no great appetite for scientific.
Because when he watches a science movie, he tells me everything that is not correct about what they are showing.
That's not all we do. I keep telling my sister, he
does not watch science movies.
I love documentaries. Because you always learn from a documentary. Even if it is a documentary which covers your own time, you always learn something that you either didn't know or you had forgotten. Susan also likes documentaries, so we often watch documentaries.
Sir, you have taught kids around the world through your YouTube, your MIT lectures, the fall series and everything. The education system there and the education system here in India is quite different. What do you think about the understanding of science in India? How Indian students perceive science? Are they hungry about science? Do they want to know about things? 75% of your audience is Indian. You have studied in many videos. So what do you think about it?
In India, almost every person wants to get into an IIT. There are 23 IITs. Only 10,000 people every year will be accepted in an IIT. And about 1 million people every year, sometimes 2 million, try to get into an IIT.
2 million, approx.
And the sad thing is, so that less than 1% gets accepted in an IIT. And the sad thing is that many people who do not get into an IIT, that means they don't pass the advanced JEE exam, they think of themselves as being a failure. And even some of their family members think of them being a failure, which is totally ridiculous. It is totally absurd, because it would mean that 99% of all Indian students were failures. It's ridiculous, right?
No, not at all.
So the good thing about the United States is that there is not just one institution, like you have IITs, that everyone wants to go to. We have universities which are at the top of the scale, and we have universities which are near the bottom of the scale. And so every person who applies for a university would apply maybe to 10 or 15 universities, and that person would apply to one that is perhaps a little bit above his or her level, and it would apply to many which are a little bit below her level. And so then they get accepted by one that is just right for them. But the notion that if you do not get accepted by Harvard, that you are then a failure is of course ridiculous. No one even thinks that way. But in India, I know that this is the case, and it is very sad. Even some Indians take their lives if they don't pass.
True, sir. True. That happens, Walter, sir. That happens. Sir, none of the IITs in the list of top 100 colleges across the globe is still IITs are so hyped up in India that students even commit suicide that you have mentioned. And I have been always telling the students, it's not about selected in IIT or selected in NEET. It's about your love for the subject, your passion for the thing that you are doing. So throw some light on that. We need Indian students to hear from you. What do you feel about this thing?
Yeah, I think the first IIT, the best IIT, is close to number 300 in the world. No, you can look it up. I mean, I really believe that. I've looked that up once. I think it's a very good question. And I think it is related to the fact that India became independent not so long ago. It was 1948.
True.
And India is still growing up.
True.
And India's priorities, the government's priorities, is not necessarily education, is also not the Olympics. How many Olympics medals do Indians have? Very few.
Very few.
Because Olympics, to get ready for the Olympics is very expensive.
Very expensive.
Can you imagine a world champion tennis in India? It's out of the question. So it is a matter of where India puts its priorities. And the priorities have to be to feed people and to keep them healthy, which is hard enough. Because India has 300 billion. So it will take a long time before India will be able to improve enormously on its education. And of course, India will then in time also get more Nobel Prizes than they have received so far. But it will happen. Alakh, it will happen. Given it another 50 years, you will see a dramatic change in the quality.
We are into it, and so many other educators and so many other contributors are here. We are trying to bring the revolution, and I'm very hopeful that we will bring the revolution very soon. Sir, do you think it's about? Sir, do you think it's also about the poverty that most of the students cannot afford education because education is highly priced in India? What are your views about it, sir? Should education be highly priced or should it be low priced? Does this affect Indian education system?
Yes, but that is connected to what I just said. In India, the priority is to feed people because of the poverty. There are many people. I have been in India 4 times. I have seen the shanty towns. It is scary. I have been at IITs whereby it was surrounded by fences and the entrance was attended by the military. You had to ID yourself to get in. And the reason for that was that the university had to protect itself from shantytown people entering. So the poverty in India is unimaginable. For probably, you know better than I do, probably 1/4 of Indians are really at the poverty level and lower. That means even their health is a serious problem. They don't even have proper medical help, maybe not even proper hygienic situations. So if that's where the emphasis lies for the government, that has to be solved first. And that will take more than 50 years.
Sir, do you think that education is already highly priced? I talk about that, but let's throw a light on it. Is internet making education affordable to Indians also? Of course, to the vast majority of Indians.
Breakthrough,
Great.
absolutely, an enormous breakthrough. Because of internet, people all over the world can watch your lectures.
Yes.
And they can also watch my lectures. They may prefer your lectures, but okay, that's my problem. Yeah, internet is an enormous breakthrough. But now again, how many people in shanty towns have computers?
Mobiles are still common.
I doubt even that shanty towns have internet. All of that will be solved in time. So yes, indeed, there comes a time that every person in a shanty town will have a cheap, but nevertheless a laptop. And then there will be internet. And then very slowly, shanty towns will evaporate.
Yeah, rickshaw chalak bas smartphone hota hai. Yeah, rickshaw chalak ke paas bhi smartphone hota hai. Sir, I want to switch topic. There was a
By the
very
way,
good topic.
you may not even know that in the United States, perhaps the richest country in the world, about 10% from the people in this country live below the poverty level. It's a shame, but it's true. India, it's much higher. And we don't have shanty towns. We have very poor neighborhoods, but we don't have shanty towns.
Sir, I want to shift the topic and bring a light-hearted topic over here. So the dotted lines. How does that happen? When was the first time that you draw that dotted lines?
It's extremely easy. My math teacher in high school did it. I can teach it to you in less than 1 minute. It is the direction in which you hold the chalk. Some people think that I can only do it because at MIT I have special chalk. Not at all true. MIT I have thick chalk, and that's worse to make dotted lines than with thin chalk. So you put it at an angle like this in the direction that you move your finger. And then the pressure on the blackboard has to be just adjusted that it starts jumping all by itself. And when you move your hand fast, then you have the dots are far apart. If you move your hand slowly, the dots are very close to each other. And on my channel, I have one video somewhere whereby I explain exactly how I do that. I can teach anyone. When I was in India, I taught at least 100 people in India how to make dotted lines. But you have to have a blackboard. You cannot do it on a whiteboard. So you need a chalk and a blackboard.
Okay. Of course.
If you're very experienced, you can even make a circle. But when you make a circle, you always have to be at an angle opposite to the direction that you're moving. So if you do a circle, you have to do this with your hands. And that takes a little bit of experience. To do this is easy. To do that is easy. To do this is easy. To do that is easy. Circles are harder.
Circles are hard. Right.
But you need a blackboard. Blackboards are going out. People do PowerPoints nowadays. People don't even know what a blackboard is anymore.
Okay.
I hate PowerPoints. I've never done PowerPoints at MIT. But that's whatever that everyone is doing nowadays. So people don't use blackboards anymore.
Sir, I will again go to a very light-hearted topic again. That you are a very great physics teacher, and students think you like a geek of physics. How does that works in your home? Matlab, what is the reaction of your wife, Susan, on you being a physics teacher? Are you able to communicate with her about physics topic? Do you talk about what is the Bernoulli's theorem? Do you know Bernoulli's theorem? Matlab, when she is bringing tea, you are like, okay, we will work on calorimetry. So how does that work in your home? The physics and Susan.
How do physics and your wife work together? They
Physics
don't.
and your-
Well, my wife is the best. So that's a given, and she knows it. So to compare the best with physics, that doesn't work.
No comparison. Not comparison, sir. Well, do you communicate physics with Susan? Of course, not comparison. Not at all. Not at all, sir. Babita is best. I know that.
He tries to teach me
Uh,
little bits and pieces, very little, small bits and pieces, because my mind is very small and it can't comprehend these huge theories and these huge equations. And I don't understand science, so we can't talk about it a lot, but our life is based around art more than
Wow.
science.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
my wife has a master's degree in art history. And I have an enormous interest in art history. I always had that already when I was very young. So that really is one of the glues between us.
When we visit, when we do travel, if we're able to travel again, we spend the majority of our free time in museums and art
Wow.
galleries. That's
Wow.
what we do.
We also discuss art together very often.
Wow.
However, Susan is smart. And I don't say that because he's sitting next to me, because I tell her that very often.
I pay him a lot.
It happens often that we see something either in nature or even in the house, that she immediately has the correct explanation, which
Wow.
I overlooked, sometimes even related to physics. She is by all means very smart, but it's true that she doesn't have a degree in physics. So yeah.
I think she doesn't know the language of physics, but physics is all around us. We see things, that is physics. We see science, that is physics. Everything around us is physics. So we all can emotionally feel physics. Some of us can convert into the equations, formulas, and all that. And some of us are like Susan, smart.
I'll tell you, Alec,
Yes.
because you're a physicist. Walter and I will be just walking down the street, taking a walk, for example. And he does not look at things the way I look at it. Like, he will look, for example, we were walking on a black pavement recently, and he pointed out all these tiny, tiny, tiny crystals, and then tried to explain to me why they were there and why and how they came there, and
why we saw rainbows in them.
and we saw rainbows.
Because they were glass beads.
So sometimes it takes me longer to see what he is seeing, but he always tries to point something out like that.
Wow.
If we're near water, he'll point out rainbows in waves, or he'll point out something that I just won't even think about because my mind doesn't think that way. So it's very stimulating, I guess is the word. And now I'll keep quiet.
You don't have to stay quiet. Women never stay quiet. So
Either does Walter Lewin.
So Walter Lewin sir has Susan. I have Babita.
I'd like to make one more comment about physics.
Yes. Yes.
Almost all Indian people that I know that write me believe that physics is a matter of knowing equations. Totally wrong. Not even 99% wrong. It is 100% wrong.
Wow.
Physics is about well, it's a word that I'm looking for. It is what is my word today?
Concepts?
Concepts. See, my wife knows it. Physics is about concepts. And I'll tell you the following. All my exams at MIT, and they are all on my YouTube channel, the first page gives every conceivable equation that a student can even think of, sometimes 100 equations. They cannot do the exam because of the equations. They can only do the exam because they understand the concept of the physics and therefore are able to choose the right equation. I don't remember many equations, I can assure you that. I once counted the number of equations that I remember. Your Indian friends will be shocked. I don't remember more than 20 equations in physics.
Wow. I
can also tell you a remarkable thing. One of the equations in 802 is Faraday's law. And so it's written in various forms. And one form is minus d phi dt equals minus L di dt. L is a capital. And once a student in class asked me during the exam, we cannot solve the problem because you didn't tell what L was. We have to know how many centimeters L was. And L is not in centimeters. L is the
coefficient of self-inductance.
So that the reason why I mentioned that is that give students all equations you want to, unless they understand the concepts, equations won't help them. By the way, during JEE exams, do students get all the equations during JEE exams?
No. They get nothing, sir. They get questions and multiple choice answers and what? Dahi chini by parents and lots of pressure and nothing else. Not even calculator.
So they have to remember 30 or 40 equations?
Sir, no, they have to remember thousands of equations, shortcuts. It's been such a bad system. What can I say? So all the coaching system, making them remembering equations, cracking physics, telling this is a shortcut, no concept. All this is happening. It's not going for the love of physics. No, not at all. I'm very
disappointed. To remember equations is a total waste of time.
True.
Total waste of time.
True.
You don't agree with me?
True. I agree.
You do physics often enough. You know that kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared. True. And you probably also know that F equals ma, okay? But to remember difficult equations is a total waste of time.
True.
I remember that photons, light, has no mass, but it has momentum. And I happen to know that the momentum is the energy divided by the speed of light. That's one of the 20 equations that I happen to remember.
Okay, I've happened to heard that Bill Gates appreciated your lecture and has been seeing your lecture. How good are students Bill Gates is for you and the whole story of Bill Gates around you?
I have no way of telling how good he is because yes, he has taken my exams, but that was only online. Okay. And I don't know how he did. How Bill Gates came in my life is actually interesting. In 1995, University of Washington in Seattle started its own TV station, Washington TV, but they didn't know how to fill it. They were aware of my help sessions at MIT, who would run on MIT closed circuit TV day and night, and that some of my lectures at MIT were also shown at MIT in the closed circuit MIT. So they asked me whether they could show those on their TV. I visited them and I discussed it with them, and somewhat reluctantly, I agreed. So my help sessions and my lectures were shown on Washington TV every day. And Bill Gates lives in Seattle.
Wow.
So he saw them. And he wrote me and told me that he loved them and that they played an important part in his life. And he sent me a very nice letter.
Wow.
It's hanging in my bedroom.
Wow.
In which he mentions how important those lectures were for him. But he never took an exam and never tested him. He may have taken the exams, just like any person in India can take my exams, but they don't send me the answers to the exam. The answers are known anyhow. The answers are listed on my YouTube channel. So I have never tested Bill Gates.
Okay.
So I don't know who the student he is. But the fact that he observed my lectures, the fact that he already in 1995 observed my lectures on Washington TV tells you something about the guy, something very positive, because he knew that they were important for him, because it broadened his horizon in the direction of science. And broadening your horizons always adds, never subtracts.
True. You can always add values to your life, add things to your life. True. I also believe this. Sir, I got to know about you through YouTube. To be very honest, through YouTube in 2013, back in 2013. How do you came to know about me? And how does this happen? How physics wala entered in your life, or how physics wala entered in your eyes, in your mind? How does this happen? The educationalists in India have their ideals like movie actors. But for me, you are my actor, you are my magician, you are like my Hollywood star, you are Tom Cruise for me. And S.C. Verma sir is Shah Rukh Khan for me. So that is how it happened.
Okay, so then the point was reached that people kept pushing me to somehow collaborate with you or to join Physics Walla platform. And then I made a proposal. I saw also messages from you. Yes. And then you said it would be great if you would give 4 lectures for my platform. I then told you one lecture takes 80 hours.
Yes.
4 times 80 is 320 hours. But I was willing to spend with you or on your platform 1 hour every week for 4 weeks in a row. It was you then, which was a wise decision, to use those 1 hour that I had once a week to do an interview. It was extremely effective. However, as I have written to many of your people who love you, it's not a collaboration.
No.
I have no intention of joining your platform because my own YouTube channel keeps me busy day and night around the clock. But as a gesture to you, to show the world my appreciation for you, and also as a gesture to my many Indian viewers,
thank you.
I wanted this interview, and I thought it was a great idea.
Thank you, sir.
But an interview, not a collaboration.
But I hope it happens sometimes in future. I hope that you can teach sometime in future to our students. What is your message to the upcoming students who are interested in science, who take interest in science, basically in India, and of course across the globe? People see you across the globe. What is your message for the physics enthusiasts, the young physics enthusiasts? What is your one message to them?
The words just to my students.
Yes.
Broaden your horizons. Get educated. I believe to my students.
Yes.
Broaden your horizons. Get educated. I believe that education in principle can solve all problems. Once people are educated, that means broadening their horizons, in whichever direction they are interested in, they can then make the correct decisions in their lives, and they can go the direction that is best for them. Education is the key to everything. Education broadens your horizons in a way that are for life. They always add, they never subtract. And of course, how far you can broaden your horizons differs from person to person. But broaden them as far as you possibly can within the framework, within your frame of reference, and within the possibilities that you have, financial possibilities and time possibilities. That's my advice to every young person. It's not an advice I can give to teachers because it's too late. They are already too old.
Too late. हो गया भैया, बन गया जैसे बनना था, अब ना हो पाएगा सही. नहीं नहीं, स्कोप हो जाता है सर. So that's all that we have today, sir. Can we have that famous dialogue from your mouth? Physics works and I'm still alive. That is fine. That is still physics works and I'm still alive. Can we have that?
That's a famous. That's a very famous.
Yes.
You may remember or you may know that on December 19, 2007, I was covered on the front page of the New York Times, including a picture of me.
On the pendulum.
And then on the New York Times, which most people don't know, on the second page, in the upper right-hand corner, there is the wisdom of the day.
Wisdom of the day.
And the day that I was on the front page of the New York Times, the wisdom of the day was, physics works and I'm still alive.
Still alive.
So when I do the experiment, which I make the student think that it is dangerous with the ball swinging to me, right? Then when I survive, which I always do, because there is always air drag on the bulb, so the bulb doesn't even reach my chin. It probably stays half a centimeter away from my chin when it comes back. I should not move forward, of course. And I should also not give the bulb a push. That would be stupid. I should just let it go. Then it always comes here. And so when I survive that, because remember, I make students believe that it might be my last lecture. And in order to convince them that it will not be my last lecture, I say physics works and I'm still alive. That's where it comes from.
Physics works, I'm still alive. That is so honest, and that is such a big statement that has become, I think it's like a movie dialogue for us. Physics works and I'm still alive. That's all that we have for today, sir. And it's been a great pleasure to have you here with us on Physics Wala platform. And I hope that someday in future that you will come. Let's hope for that. And let's keep the door open for that. Keep the opportunity open and for me opportunity. So that's all we have, sir. So do you have any ending quote? I used to, I say in every lecture, do you have that some sort of thing, that desired thing, actually?
I do have an ending quote of all my videos on my YouTube channel. And that is, of course, we are friends. We will always be friends. That's a given. That's on every one of my videos. And my videos always start, which has become my icon. Hello, hello,
hello, hello.
And if I sometimes forget hello, hello, hello.
Students write that.
There are hundreds who say, how can you do this to us? We miss you. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, bacho. I have an extended version. Hello, bacho. Hello, hello.
I will end this interview with a different quote.
Yes, sir.
You are doing a great job in India. I support you for 100%. That is the reason why I did this interview. you're really a very important teacher, young, but they love you and they watch you by the tens and tens of thousands. I support you. I love Physics Wallah, but I will not join Physics Wallah.
No.
Not now and not in the future, for the simple reason, Alakh, that I have my own YouTube platform.
True, sir.
Your YouTube platform is in addition to my YouTube platform. So all the Indian students are fortunate. They can watch both you and they can watch me.